I want you to just visualize something for me right now, wherever you are.
Okay, I'm picturing.
Imagine you're looking at a massive, like, wall-to-wall split screen.
Right.
So on the left side of that screen, you are looking at an image that has, for all intents and purposes, completely short-circuited the social media ecosystem over the last few weeks.
Oh, I know exactly the image you mean.
Yeah, you probably do.
Okay.
It's a guy standing against a stark, neutral background. He's reaching behind his neck, pulling a plain white T-shirt up and over his head.
Yeah.
It is an image of pure, undeniable, like hyper-calculated aesthetic dominance. I mean, it's an image specifically engineered to make millions of people just stop scrolling, stare, and frantically type comments about how they need this man for their mental health.
It is the absolute pinnacle of what the internet calls a thirst trap, but executed with this high fashion precision.
Exactly. But then I want you to look at the right side of this imaginary split screen. It's the exact same human being. Only this time, he is not dominating anything at all. He is slumped on a couch in a suburban living room, holding a butterfly in a jar, radiating this profound, heavy, suffocating aura of suppressed trauma.
It's such a jarring contrast.
It really is. He is delivering what critics are calling one of the most quietly devastating cinematic performances of the decade. A performance so subtle and so fragile that it honestly feels almost intrusive to watch.
Right, like you shouldn't be in the room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if you are looking at both sides of that screen, your brain is probably telling you that these two realities shouldn't be able to exist in the same person at the same time, right?
Yeah.
You have the ultimate internet-breaking physical specimen on the left and this deeply wounded, highly internal artist on the right.
And that cognitive dissonance, that gap between the surface level physical perfection and the incredibly complex internal landscape, that's exactly why we are here today. We are doing a deep dive into the evolution of actor Charles Melton.
And we are not just reading off a Hollywood resume today, are we?
No, not at all. We are looking at a very deliberate, almost architectural recalibration of a human being and his career.
We have a mountain of sources to guide you through this today, too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to understand how a modern movie star is built in 2026, you have to look at everything.
You really do.
So we are pulling from the highly visual, incredibly strategic fashion spreads from W Magazine, L'Officiel, and British GQ.
Some really wild shoots in there.
Totally. We've also got deep dive industry interviews with Collider and IndieWire. We're analyzing his incredibly vulnerable award speeches, specifically his recent appearance at Gold House.
Which was so revealing.
So revealing. We're also digging into the impassioned, sometimes furious fan debates happening on Reddit. We even have granular, stitch-by-stitch, red carpet fashion critiques from the bloggers at Tom plus Lorenzo.
Because fashion is a huge part of the story.
It's massive. Our mission today is to figure out how a former college football player who spent years trapped in the neon-lit trenches of a teen soap opera managed to completely deconstruct his own masculinity, embrace his deeply complex dual identity, and, emerge as one of the most sought-after muses for modern auteur directors.
The key to this entire deep dive is integration.
Yeah.
We cannot compartmentalize him. I mean, his physical presentation, his internal acting process, his Korean-American heritage, his military brat upbringing, these aren't just separate folders in a filing cabinet.
Right.
They are all constantly bleeding into each other, informing the roles he chooses and the literal way he presents his body to the world.
All right, well, I want to start with the loudest thing in the room. The thing you literally could not avoid if you opened any social media app this past June. We have to talk about the physical instrument.
Let's do it.
I have to talk about that W Magazine photo shoot, because I don't think we can honestly map his evolution as an artist without first addressing how he is currently and very deliberately weaponizing his physical presence.
Weaponizing is honestly the perfect framing, because when we talk about a magazine shoot at this level, we have to strip away the idea that it's just vanity or chance, right? This is a strategic deployment of aesthetics.
Let me set the scene for you, just in case you somehow missed this. In this June 2026 W Magazine spread, there is this one specific shot. He's standing there, and instead of wearing his shirt, he has this short-sleeved tee draped over one shoulder, almost like a makeshift scarf.
Yeah, it's quite a look.
And his entire torso is exposed. And we are talking about sharply defined, absolutely punishing athletic conditioning. The abs, the obliques, that V-line that just disappears into a pair of high-waisted, black pleated trousers.
The pleats were a choice for sure.
A great choice.
Yeah.
And then there's this shot that actually broke the algorithm,
Yeah.
the one I mentioned earlier, where he is caught mid-motion, pulling a white T-shirt completely behind his neck, baring his entire upper body to the lens.
But the genius of that specific editorial spread is the immediate pivot. Like, you have the raw visceral exposure, but turn the page, and suddenly he is encased in this incredibly refined, almost clinical black and white aesthetic.
Oh, the aviator shot?
Yes. He's wearing dark aviator sunglasses and a tightly fitted V-neck sweater. He goes from completely accessible and vulnerable to entirely closed off, mysterious, and untouchable in a matter of seconds.
And the W magazine shoot isn't happening in isolation either. I mean, this is a sustained blitz. Because if you look at the spring of 2026, he was on the cover of Men's Health, lounging poolside in nothing but black swim briefs and an open striped robe.
Which broke the internet in its own right.
Totally. And then you have the British GQ Heroes issue, which is a totally different flavor of madness.
Oh, the schoolboy shoot.
Yeah, in that one, he is styled in this deliberately chaotic, sort of disheveled schoolboy aesthetic. He's got an open blazer, a loosened striped tie, a rumpled white dress shirt, and plaid briefs.
Right.
And he's posing against this surreal backdrop of figures who are frozen mid-scuffle.
Which, as the sources point out, sparked a massive debate online.
Oh, absolutely. And frankly, I need to stop you here and just play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Because when I read about a 36-year-old man doing a high-fashion shoot in plaid underwear and a loosened necktie, posing like a naughty schoolboy, I have to ask, does that not just look like a desperate cry for attention?
I mean, I can see why people would say that.
Right. Think about your own social media feed right now. It is saturated with people doing literally anything for a click. Does leaning this heavily into the thirst trap aesthetic run the risk of completely undermining his credibility? Like, if everyone is just drooling over your obliques, why would they ever take you seriously as a dramatic artist?
That is the fundamental anxiety of the modern leading man, isn't it? If you offer yourself up as a pure object of physical consumption, do you forfeit your right to be viewed as an intellectual heavyweight?
Exactly.
But I think you're looking at this through the lens of an influencer rather than the lens of a movie star.
Okay, unpack that for me.
I would argue that what Melton is doing is not desperate. It's an assertion of total dominance. Let's look at the mechanics of Hollywood history for a second. In the golden age of the studio system, an actor's image was entirely controlled by executives. They dictated the lighting, the framing, and the exact dissemination of the 8x10 headshot to build a very specific aura of desire and unattainability.
Right, the studios held all the cards back then.
Exactly. But today, the algorithm is the studio head. And what Melton is doing is providing a modern-day, algorithmically weaponized version of that studio headshot.
Oh, wow. I like that.
He is demonstrating to the industry, to casting directors, and to auteurs that he has absolute granular control over his physical instrument. By jumping from the sweaty poolside Men's Health shoot to the hyper-stylized W magazine spread, he is proving he can transition seamlessly from raw, unbridled athletic masculinity to high-fashion editorial vulnerability. I mean, he's a chameleon who can bend the algorithm to his will.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. It's like a billboard versus a resume.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
A resume tells you what someone has done, but this kind of visual campaign is a billboard screaming, like, look at the sheer bandwidth of my presence.
Precisely.
And the sources point out a fascinating detail that really backs you up here. Just hours before the W magazine shoot dropped, fan accounts on X, formerly Twitter, were independently resurfacing the poolside shots from Men's Health.
They were doing the work for him.
Exactly. He has created this perpetual, self-sustaining loop of internet fame. He feeds the machine, and the machine does his PR for him.
It's brilliant. It keeps his cultural relevance red hot while he is off doing the quiet internal work of preparing for his next role. But, to understand how he earned the right to dominate that timeline and how he developed that absolute control over his instrument, we have to look backward.
Right.
We have to look at the proving ground.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Because if you are listening to this and wondering how someone actually builds the stamina to survive in this industry, the answer is usually incredibly unglamorous. He didn't just manifest fully formed on the set of a prestige Todd Haynes film. We have to talk about his time playing Reggie Mantle on the CW's Riverdale.
The narrative of the overnight success is one of Hollywood's most persistent and, frankly, toxic myths. It completely erases the grueling blue-collar labor of learning how to act for the camera.
I want to push back on a bias that I think a lot of people have, maybe even some of you listening right now. People love to dismiss teen network shows.
Oh, all the time.
They treat a show like Riverdale, with its absurd plot lines involving gargoyle kings and high school speakeasies, as if it's just fluff. They view it as a lesser form of acting. But let me tell you what a 100-episode run on a chaotic, fast-paced network television schedule actually is. It's playing speed chess while running on a treadmill.
That is a phenomenal way to describe it. Break down the mechanics of that environment for us, because I think people don't get it.
Sure. So on a network schedule, you are churning out 22 episodes a season. You are working 14, sometimes 16-hour days.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
Right. And you are constantly getting script revisions the morning of the shoot.
Mm.
You have to learn how to hit your tape mark on the floor perfectly while delivering a ridiculous line of dialogue with absolute life-or-death conviction.
Yeah, you have to sell it.
And over the course of his run on Riverdale, Melton worked with over 100 different directors. Think about that. Every single week, a new director walks onto the set with a completely different communication style, a different visual vocabulary, and a different set of demands.
It is the closest thing modern Hollywood has to the old repertory theater system. You are forced into an endurance test. You learn the geometry of a film set. You learn how to modulate your energy so you don't burn out by lunch.
Yeah, pacing is everything.
And most importantly, you learn how to take direction rapidly and translate it into physical action immediately. When you survive a crucible like that, you are essentially bulletproof when you finally step onto the set of a prestige indie film, where you actually have the luxury of time and rehearsal.
You're laying bricks. And while he was doing that, he was also quietly breaking ground. The sources highlight his role as Daniel Bay in the movie The Sun is also a star.
Oh, right.
And you might think, okay, it's a teen romance. But look at the context. He was the first Korean-American and Asian-American actor to lead a major Hollywood studio teen romance.
That's a huge milestone.
It is. He was proving he could carry a studio film. But still, the industry viewed him in a very specific, slightly marginalized box. He was the handsome teen soap star.
And then the earthquake happens. The massive tectonic shift in his career trajectory. Director Todd Haynes casts him in December.
I want you to imagine the pressure of this.
Yeah.
You are Charles Melton. You have just spent years relying on your physical swagger, your broad shoulders, your traditional leading man confidence to get you through Riverdale.
Yeah.
And now you are stepping onto a set to play a character named Joe Yu, starring directly opposite two of the most formidable Oscar-winning titans of modern cinema, Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman.
Talk about intimidating.
And you are playing a man who is fundamentally broken.
The physical transformation he underwent for December is the exact inverse of the W magazine shit we were just talking about. This is where we see the contrast. For a guy whose current brand relies on that punishing athletic conditioning, he had to systematically erase all of it.
He really did.
He deliberately gained weight. He softened his jawline, his waist, his entire physical presentation. He had to completely dismantle the armor of his muscles.
Because if you walk into that role looking like a men's fitness cover model, the entire psychology of the film collapses. Let's explain why that physical softening was so crucial. In December, he is playing a victim of grooming.
Right.
Joe Yu is a man in his mid-30s who was preyed upon by an older woman when he was just a 13-year-old boy in a pet shop. He is now married to that woman. He has children with her who are about to graduate high school.
The psychological mechanics of this performance are staggering. I mean, he isn't just playing sad, he is playing arrested development. He is a man who was frozen in time at the exact moment his trauma occurred. And to convey that, Melton couldn't rely on dialogue because Joe Yu barely speaks in the film.
He really doesn't.
No, he had to do it all through physical mechanics.
I want to break down exactly how he did that because the fan discussions on Reddit zeroed in on this brilliance. Think about how a teenager occupies space compared to a confident adult man.
They're awkward.
Yeah, a teenager hunches, they make themselves smaller, they avoid direct eye contact, they speak with a slight hesitation, like a questioning upward inflection at the end of their sentences, as if they were constantly asking for permission to exist.
Yeah.
Exactly. Melton adopted all of that. One Reddit user articulated it perfectly. They said whenever he was on screen, radiating through his posture and his eyes, all you could see was a terrified 13-year-old kid trapped inside the body of a 36-year-old man.
It's a masterclass in internal hiding. He had to present to the other characters in the film as a functional, stoic husband and father. He has a job, he grills hot dogs in the backyard, he does the laundry.
He has the butterfly cages.
Right, the butterflies. But he had to present to the audience the agonizing reality of his stolen innocence. There is a scene the sources point to where Joe is watching his kids graduate high school. And you look at Melton's face in that moment, and the sheer tragedy of it is that he looks like he should be sitting among the graduating class, not up in the bleachers as a parent.
And he holds his own by doing almost nothing. More and Portman are operating at this incredibly high, almost campy, melodramatic pitch.
They are so loud in that movie.
They're swirling around him, manipulating each other, chewing the scenery in the best way possible. And Melton anchors the entire film by just sitting there, absorbing the impact, existing as this tragic, hollowed-out shell. It is no wonder he swept the Critics' Awards.
He really swept them.
He took Best Supporting Actor at the Gotham Independent Film Awards, the National Society of Film Critics Awards, and the New York Film Critics Awards.
Which brings us to a very complex and somewhat cynical industry reality.
Here we go.
Despite the critical sweep, despite delivering what many called the performance of the year, he was inexplicably snubbed by the Academy. He did not receive an Oscar nomination. And the intense speculation surrounding why he was snubbed provides a really fascinating window into the psychology of Hollywood itself.
The Reddit threads were absolutely on fire about this. Now, we are going to maintain strict neutrality regarding the real-life tabloid events that loosely inspired the film.
Of course.
But if we look purely at the text of the movie, the thematic core of May-December, the fan theory about the Oscar snub is incredibly compelling. Because what is May-December actually about? It is a razor-sharp, brutal critique of the entertainment industry. Natalie Portman plays an actress who is doing research by relentlessly invading the lives of these traumatized people.
The film is a mirror held up to Hollywood's darkest impulse, the extraction and exploitation of human trauma for prestige and profit. It is a movie about how actors and studios consume real human suffering, package it into glamorous, award-winning narratives, and do so without the consent or the well-being of the actual victims in mind.
So think about who makes up the voting body of the Academy. It is the very actors, producers, and directors that the film is actively satirizing.
Yeah, it's them.
And the speculation online is that the Academy simply felt too seen. They felt uncomfortable. As one Reddit user bluntly put it, Hollywood couldn't handle being called out for exploiting people's trauma while simultaneously patting themselves on the back and acting like they're doing the victims a profound favor by telling their story.
It's too close to home.
The industry didn't like the ugly reflection in the mirror, and they punished the film and Melton by looking the other way during awards season.
It is a profound irony. You deliver a performance that perfectly and devastatingly illustrates the human cost of the very stories Hollywood loves to tell, and the institution responds by closing the door on you.
Yeah.
But while the Academy may have looked away, his peers absolutely did not. The respect he commanded from that performance was permanent, and it became the direct catalyst for the next phase of his career.
Which is a perfect pivot point for us, because we have just spent a massive amount of time talking about a role where Charles Melton had to suppress his identity, where he had to shrink himself and hide.
Right.
Now, we have to look at the exact opposite. We have to look at a project where his personal history, his unique cultural background, and his specific psychological makeup were explicitly excavated and woven directly into the text.
Oh, I love this story.
We have to talk about his casting in Beef Season 2.
And the logistics of how this casting came about is almost as entertaining as the show itself, because it shows you the kind of cultural gravity he suddenly possessed in the aftermath of May-December.
It's an incredible story of industry networking, but, like, elevated. So Lee Sung-jin, the creator and showrunner of Beef, who goes by Sonny, is attending a dinner hosted by Goldhouse.
Right.
If you aren't familiar, Goldhouse is a phenomenal organization dedicated to championing Asian American and Pacific Islander excellence in media and business. And this specific dinner was actually being held to honor Charles Melton's performance in May-December.
So the room is already primed to celebrate him.
Exactly. Sonny had just watched the movie, was completely floored by Melton's performance, and he decides, on the day of the dinner, that he needs Melton for the second season of Beef.
Just right then and there.
Yep. So Sonny texts the organizer of the event, Bing Chen. He says, "Bro, you have to change the seating chart. You have to seat me right next to Charles tonight. I'm going to pitch him the entire season on my phone."
That's so bold.
But Bing tells him, "I can't do that. I already have Chloe Zhao sitting right next to him."
And just to underscore this for you listening, Chloe Zhao is the Academy Award-winning director. You walk into a VIP dinner and ask to bump Chloe Zhao from the seat of honor.
Right. But Sonny is relentless. He shows up to the dinner, and through sheer force of will, they actually manage to move Chloe Zhao 3 seats down the table just so Sonny can slide in next to Charles.
I still can't believe he pulled that off.
I know. And right there, amidst the clinking glasses and the speeches, Sonny pulls out his phone and pitches Charles the entire sprawling, chaotic arc of Beef Season 2. And Charles, demonstrating an incredible amount of power and restraint, doesn't jump at it immediately. He waits all the way until dessert is served before leaning over and saying yes.
It's a brilliant Hollywood anecdote, but what happened after dessert is what really matters here. That Yes initiated a months-long, intensely collaborative process before a single script was finalized or a frame was shot. The sources indicate that Sonny and Charles spent over 60 hours on the phone together.
60 hours. That's practically a full-time job.
It really is. And they weren't just plotting out story beats. Sonny was actively excavating Melton's real life, his insecurities, and his history to construct his character, Austin Davis.
Let's introduce you to Austin Davis, because this character is a lightning rod. Austin is Gen Z. He's a former college football player, which is a direct pull from Melton's own life as he played Division I football at Kansas State.
Right.
Austin is this aspiring personal trainer and wannabe influencer who is newly engaged to a character named Ashley, played by Kaylee Spaney. And the premise of the season is that Austin and Ashley end up working at an incredibly exclusive country club.
The country club setting is so perfect for this.
It's brilliant. There they get locked into this vicious, passive-aggressive, high-stakes generational warfare with their bosses, who are a wealthy millennial couple played by Oscar Isaac and Carey Mulligan.
The thematic engine of the season relies heavily on that generational friction. You have the millennials who are burnt out, cynical, and drowning in existential exhaustion, colliding head-on with the unearned hubris, the frantic energy, and the desperate naivete of Gen Z.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Oh, absolutely. But beneath that broad cultural clash, Austin Davis is wrestling with a much more intimate crisis of cultural and personal identity.
And this is where the 60 hours of phone calls come into play. Because Austin is a character who survives by hiding behind masks. Within the world of the show, Austin is described as someone who is perceived by the people around him as Arizonian rather than Korean. He passes as this generic, sun-baked American bro.
Which brings us to the concept of the Korean himbo.
I am so glad we were talking about this because Melton's perspective on it is so refreshing. In his award speech at Gold House, he talked explicitly about embracing this label. He literally stood at the podium, looked out at the crowd, and said, "I'm fine with the Korean himbo thing. It's cool." I actually like that Korean men can be seen as hot sex symbols.
I love that he just owned it.
He even joked, like, look at this room. It's full of Asian smoke shows. It was this wonderful, triumphant acknowledgement of physical desirability, which is something that Hollywood has historically and very intentionally stripped away from Asian men.
It is a massive reclamation of space. But Melton also deeply understood the tragic flaw of the himbo archetype as it applied to Austin. The himbo is usually just a punchline, a beautiful, empty vessel.
Right.
But Melton and Sonny layered it with intense psychological realism. Melton acknowledged that Austin's himbo persona is actually a trauma response.
Wow.
Yeah, Austin is a lost soul. He is a desperate people-pleaser who actively hides his Koreanness, who smooths over his own cultural edges because he genuinely believes that assimilation and generic attractiveness are the only ways he can survive in an elite, white-dominated space like a country club.
If you've ever found yourself in a corporate meeting or at a party and you realize you are actively modulating your voice, hiding your background, or laughing at jokes you don't find funny just to blend in, that is what Austin is doing with his entire life.
It's exhausting.
And the sources point out that this specific detail of hiding was pulled directly from Melton's own lived experience. There is a specific scene in Beef that takes place at a Chinese bamboo house restaurant. Someone asks Austin if he spends much time with the local Korean community. And Austin replies, almost defensively, that he went to a Korean church once, but everyone there just assumed he was Mexican.
That line is not an invention of the writer's room. That is a real painful memory from Charles Melton's life that they transplanted into the script.
Because Melton grew up as an army brat. His father is American, his mother is Korean. He moved constantly. He talked about how, for a massive portion of his life, he felt like he was two halves of entirely separate things, never quite forming a whole picture.
Yeah.
When people would ask him the classic loaded question, "Where are you from?" he never had a simple or satisfying answer.
When you move that much, when you are constantly the new kid on a military base, your primary survival skill becomes reading the room and becoming whatever the room needs you to be. You build armor. And for Melton, that armor was often physical fitness and athletic prowess. Right.
If we connect this to the broader theme of the deep dive, what we are watching with Beef is an artist using his craft not to escape himself, but to actively integrate his own fractured sense of identity.
And the geography of where they filmed is the final puzzle piece here. They filmed a significant portion of Beef Season 2 in Seoul, South Korea, which is the city where Melton actually grew up for several years and where his mother's family still lives.
Wow.
Filming there allowed him to return home. And I don't just mean getting off a plane, I mean returning home emotionally. He said that being there, doing this specific work, made him realize that you are who you are, your culture finds you.
That's a beautiful quote.
You can run from it, you can bury it under a himbo persona, but eventually it catches up to you.
It is a profound realization, and it perfectly positions him as what he calls a zillennial.
Yes. He used that term in his W Magazine interview. A zillennial, a micro-generation bridging the gap between millennials and Gen Z. I think that is the perfect metaphor for who Austin Davis is, and maybe who Melton is too.
I agree. Austin is the bridge between the outward-facing, frantic optimization of Gen Z and the internal, crushing existential dread of the millennials. He had this massive, imposing physical frame, but internally, he is an absolute freefall, desperately searching for an anchor.
Which naturally leads us into a deeper examination of Charles Melton the man, beyond the characters he plays. Because to play a character who is so fractured, Melton had to engage in a profound, real-world project of deconstructing his own masculinity.
He spoke about this incredibly movingly during his IndieWire honor speech. He stood up and admitted that his conservative upbringing provided him with a very rigid, very traditional blueprint of what it meant to be a man.
Right, the classic stoicism.
Yeah. Men don't cry, men don't show weakness, men provide and protect. And he said that the process of exploring Austin Davis forced him to systematically tear down that blueprint.
He had to learn that the armor he built to survive as a mixed-race army brat was no longer serving him as an artist.
Exactly. He realized that it is not just acceptable to be vulnerable, it is required. He learned that it's actually an act of strength to care, and to care deeply about the emotional realities of the people around you.
Yeah.
And you see that exact shift in how he prepared for the role. Think about the contradiction here. To play a meathead personal trainer, what does Charles Melton do? Does he just live in the gym? No. He goes to the bookstore.
I love this detail.
He devours academic self-help books on the psychology of anxious attachment styles. He approaches the emotional landscape of this himbo with the rigorous intensity of a graduate student preparing a thesis.
And this is where the psychology of Charles Melton becomes truly fascinating. He pairs that newfound emotional vulnerability with a drive for perfection that is almost violently physical. The sports background, the football conditioning, it never really leaves his nervous system. It just gets redirected into the craft of acting.
And the stories from the set of Beef highlight this paradox perfectly. Let's talk about the ADR process.
Oh, the ADR story is wild.
For those listening who might not know, ADR stands for Automated Dialogue Replacement. It's the incredibly tedious process in post-production where an actor goes into a soundproof booth, watches a scene they already filmed, and has to re-record their dialogue to fix audio issues, trying to perfectly match the lip flaps of their original performance.
It is exhausting, frustrating work.
And most actors despise it.
They want to be in and out as fast as possible.
Right. But Sonny, the showrunner, told this amazing anecdote. He said that the legendary, iconic Korean actor Song Kang-ho, who you might know from Parasite, is infamous for holding the record for the most ADR takes.
Right.
He will stand in the booth and demand hundreds of takes for a single line until he feels the emotional resonance is absolutely flawless. Well, Sonny revealed that Charles Melton is right behind him. Melton was consistently pushing into the 90s.
90 takes.
90 takes of a single line of audio, refusing to leave a booth until he beat his own internal standard.
Nobody can pressure me more than I can pressure myself. That is a direct quote from Melton regarding his work ethic.
But I need to push back hard on this next story, because this is where the line between dedication and self-destruction gets very blurry for me.
Okay, let's hear it.
There is the Tom Cruise running story. They are shooting the massive finale sequence for Beef. There's a tracking shot of Austin Davis sprinting down the street trying to grab a taxi. It's an action beat. They set up the cameras, they roll, Melton sprints, they cut. The director looks at the monitor and says, "Great, we have the shot. Let's move on."
The scene is finished.
The scene is finished.
Yeah.
But Melton refuses to stop. He looks at the director and says, "No, I can go faster. I want to do it like Tom Cruise."
Which is insane.
So against the director's initial call, they reset. They roll again. Melton gives them a full, unhinged Tom Cruise-level sprint, and he pushes his body so violently hard that he literally pulls a hamstring on a take they didn't even technically need.
It reveals a fascinating paradox in his personality. On one hand, you have this deeply empathetic, emotionally attuned human being. Sonny noted that when one of their directors had a new baby, Melton was the guy secretly sending weeks' worth of food to their house.
That's so sweet.
He is known for fiercely advocating for the crew's well-being on set. But on the other hand, you have a man whose internal engine runs so hot, who is fueled by such a relentless, almost punishing competitiveness, that he will willingly cause himself physical injury just to prove he has another gear.
And that's what I want you, the listener, to consider for a second. When you hear a story like that, an actor pulling a hamstring to get a slightly faster sprint on film, is that the mark of a truly dedicated, transcendent artist? Or is it a dangerous level of self-pressure?
It's a fine line.
Because when I hear that, applying a sports analogy, I don't see a master of his craft. I see a high-performance athlete who genuinely does not know when the whistle is blown. He is out there on the field, pushing his body to the absolute breaking point long after the coach, the ref, and the scoreboard have all said, the game is over, we won, go to the locker room.
Yeah.
It is incredible to witness that level of intensity, but you have to wonder about the long-term toll. How sustainable is that?
Sustainability is the critical question. If you treat every single take like it is the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl, you will eventually burn out. But I think there is a massive new variable in his life that is going to fundamentally recalibrate that pressure gauge. Because recently, Charles Melton and his partner, Camille Summers-Valley, welcomed their first child, a baby girl.
Yes. He made the announcement during his Gold House speech, and it was such a powerful moment. He was up there receiving this massive honor, and he dedicated the entire award to his newborn daughter.
It was very emotional.
He looked out at this room full of Asian American trailblazers and thanked them for doing the grueling, decades-long work of representation, because they were actively making the world a place where his daughter can belong and thrive without having to hide who she is.
Becoming a father, particularly a father to a daughter, has a profound way of shifting an artist's center of gravity. It forces you to reevaluate your legacy.
Absolutely. You have to wonder if having a child waiting at home will finally soften that punishing internal drive, or at the very least, give him a new perspective on what actually requires a bold hamstring to achieve.
Let's hope so.
He is no longer just building a resume for himself. He is curating a body of work, a financial empire, and a cultural footprint for his family to inherit.
And when you look at the choices he is making for his upcoming slate of films, you can see that curation happening in real time. He is operating with extreme precision. He is no longer in the phase of his career where he just needs to take a job to stay relevant. He is actively aligning himself with visionaries.
The upcoming projects list is honestly staggering. It is a who's who of modern cinema.
It really is.
He is starring in Warfare, which is an A24 war movie, co-directed by the brilliant Alex Garland, who gave us Ex Machina and Civil War. He is stepping into an indie film called Saturn Return with director Greg Quaidar, starring alongside Will Poulter and Rachel Brosnahan.
That's going to be good.
He is attached to a dark comedy called Love Child with Elizabeth Olsen. And then there is a project called Her Private Hell, directed by Nicholas Winding Refn.
Wow.
Refn is known for movies like Drive and The Neon Demon. He is one of the most polarizing, hyper-stylized, neon-drenched directors working today. And on top of all that prestige indie cred, he just proved he can effortlessly slide into massive blockbuster popcorn action by starring alongside Will Smith and Martin Lawrence in the Bad Boys franchise with Ride or Die.
What is truly revealing about that list is the methodology behind it. When asked how he picks his projects, Melton laid out a very specific hierarchy. He stated that he looks at the filmmaker first, then he looks at the material, then he looks at who the cinematographer is, and finally he looks at his scene partners.
The cinematographer is third on the list, above his co-stars.
Exactly. That is the hierarchy of an actor who fundamentally understands that cinema is a director's medium. He doesn't just want to be the star. He wants to be a specific color on the palette of auteurs who possess highly distinct visual and narrative languages. He wants to be molded by people who know exactly where to put the camera.
Which brings us back beautifully, full circle, to how he presents himself to those cameras when he is out in the real world promoting these auteur-driven projects. We started by talking about his physical dominance in magazine spreads, but we have to conclude by talking about the red carpet.
We do.
Specifically, we need to dive into the incredibly granular critique from the fashion bloggers, Tom plus Lorenzo, regarding his outfit at the 2024 Critics' Choice Awards. Because I think his fashion choices are actually the final key to understanding his current psychology.
Tom plus Lorenzo are essential reading for red carpet analysis because they never just look at the label, they look at the narrative the clothing is trying to project.
And they hold nothing back. So picture this. Melton shows up to the Critics' Choice Awards. He is wearing a custom Valentino suit, accessorized with delicate Marie-attached jewelry and a classic Omega watch.
Okay.
Now, the bloggers praised certain specific elements of the look. They loved the rich, tactile nature of the sharkskin fabric, how it caught the flashbulbs. They loved the gorgeous, deep color palette. And they specifically pointed out this fabulous, incredibly thin black tie that had actual metal edging on it, giving it this sharp, almost dangerous detail.
The raw materials were all exceptional, but their critique was entirely focused on the silhouette and the execution.
They hated the cut. They called the silhouette of the suit blocky. They noted that it looked bizarrely slouchy on his frame, almost as if he had borrowed a physically larger collie's uniform at the last minute.
Ouch!
It completely obscured his waist and shoulders. And they absolutely roasted this awful bright white lining that was inadvertently peeking out around the top button of the jacket, ruining the sleekness of the color palette.
It's a sharp critique of the tailoring, certainly, but it points to a much larger, very consistent styling choice that Melton makes for major industry events. He frequently opts for these aggressively boxy, oversized, double-breasted suits that completely swallow his physical form.
Okay, I have a theory about this, and I want to see if you buy it.
Blow it on me.
I do not think the blocky Valentino suit was a tailoring mistake. I think it is an incredibly deliberate psychological choice. What if Melton's preference for this oversized, slouchy tailoring is an active rejection of the standard, sleek, V-tapered Hollywood leading man silhouette?
You're suggesting it's a way to modulate his own objectification.
Yes. Think about it. He spends his time doing these incredibly vulnerable, totally shirtless magazine shoots, where he is offering up literally every single muscle to the camera lens. He controls that environment completely.
Right.
But when he is walking a red carpet, surrounded by hundreds of screaming photographers and industry executives, he doesn't want to be the himbo. He wants to be the auteur's muse. What if these blocky suits are what I would call his sartorial shadow self?
Oh, I like that term.
It is a way to physically hide his phenomenal physique in a professional setting. When he is at an award show to be recognized for a devastating, subtle, dramatic performance like May, December, he wants the focus solely on his art, his face, and his presence. He doesn't want you looking at his obliques. He is essentially putting the armor back on.
That is a phenomenal reading of his visual language. It is the ultimate establishment of a boundary. He is communicating to the world, I control exactly when and how you get to consume my physicality. On the pages of W Magazine, I am an aesthetic object. But here, on this red carpet, among my peers, I am an artist. And I will take up space, but I will do it on my own terms, hidden inside the drape of a sharkskin suit. It creates this mesmerizing, constant duality.
It really is an incredible arc we've mapped out today. If you take a step back and look at the whole picture, the evolution is staggering.
Yeah.
He learned the brutal blue-collar mechanics of acting in the trenches of a 100-episode teen soap.
And he survived it.
He survived that machine without letting it define him. Then, he bravely stepped into the prestige world and completely deconstructed his own masculinity and his own deeply complicated heritage on screen, turning his personal search for identity into profound, award-winning art.
Yeah.
And all the while, he is simultaneously owning his physical power, breaking the social media algorithms with viral photo shoots, and totally redefining what a leading man can look and act like in 2026. Charles Melton is not just playing the Hollywood game. He is writing a completely unique playbook.
And the brilliance of his journey is that it forces us to look inward as well. When you hear Melton talk about his character Austin Davis and how Austin hides behind these generic masks to survive because he is terrified that his actual culture won't be accepted that resonates far beyond Hollywood.
You do that.
How often do any of us do that? How often do we obscure our true selves, our heritage, or our deep emotional vulnerabilities just to fit seamlessly into a corporate space or a social circle that wasn't actually built for us?
It's the universal struggle of assimilation. But how powerful is it when we finally realize, just as Melton did when he returned to Seoul, that our culture, our history, and our true selves will always eventually find us?
You can't outrun it.
You cannot outrun who you are. The armor will eventually crack. But when you stop running and you stop hiding behind the masks, you might just find that your true self is your greatest artistic strength.
Which leaves us with one final lingering paradox to chew on today.
The ultimate tension of his career. Exactly. Throughout all the sources we've unpacked, from the fashion spreads to the intense set stories, we see this incredible unresolved tension. Charles Melton is a man who can confidently strip down, offering himself up as a pure, widely consumed aesthetic object for millions of people on a glowing screen.
Yeah.
Yet his most acclaimed, enduring, and powerful artistic work relies entirely on profound internal hiding, suppressed trauma, and extreme emotional fragility.
Yeah.
So here is the thought to ponder as you go about your day, as you scroll through your own feeds in a modern era that constantly demands absolute visibility and physical perfection. Can an artist ever truly strike a permanent balance between being a worshipped physical icon and an excavator of the darkest, most fragile human psyches?
That's a huge
Or
question.
will we, as an audience, always struggle to reconcile the superhero physique with the deeply wounded soul we see on screen?